Hello and welcome to another GemCap Academy. It is my pleasure and delight to once again welcome a friend. I seem to have lots of friends in this industry, but this is a dear friend of mine. Actually lives very close to me as well. Adam Nicoll. Good morning to you. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Very well, thank you.
Well, Adam, you and I have known each other a long time, and you're someone who I've admired and respected from your marketing skills, and that's what we're going to be talking about today is marketing. Because in your career, you've done some quite amazing things. Particularly like some of the videos you've done. So, yeah, hopefully your benchmark is way up here as far as I'm concerned. But hopefully today we'll try and get to that benchmark. Do you want to just give our viewer a quick update as to who you are and your background?
Sure thing, Stuart. So, Adam Nicoll, two L's, no H. Everyone spells that incorrectly. It's probably the most misspelt surname in Christendom, frankly. My background pretty checkered with various corporates. So I was at KPMG for five years in the late 90s, early noughties. I was at Allen Overy, the now biggest law firm in the world. And then since the last 20 years, really, 4 or 5 big recruitment groups, including Randstad for the last decade or so. Left there a couple of years back, but that's the largest HR consultancy in the world. And before that, 510 Group, which did a bit of work in Russia and owned several executive search companies in London and globally, but they majored in London. Badenoch and Clark before that, Kinsey Allen before that. A broad pedigree over the last 25 years or so across the largest kind of recruitment firms, law firms, and accountancy firms, and auditing in those environments too. So the last couple of years, a bit of a gear change, a bit of a transition in my career towards hospitality. Had a heavy hand in saving the village pub and getting finance to buy that, to save it from becoming a house, which was great.
And a great pub it is.
It's a cracker, isn't it? Yeah, the Plough at
Well,
Ley Green.
give it a name drop, quick. We've got to get a name drop.
The Plough at Kings Walden / Ley Green. There's 2 hamlets that kind of join together in North Hertfordshire. So yeah, that's fantastic. And off the back of that, got a role as a sort of fractional CMO for Anglian Country Inns, the multi-award winning hospitality empire that's growing by the hour. 10 current pubs and restaurants, a bakery being launched in about 2 weeks as well on the North Norfolk coast. So yeah, a varied background in marketing.
Brilliant, thank you. I mean, a big shout out to Anglian Country Inns because the award winning this week. I think you've only just recovered from that ceremony, have you, Adam?
I still have that victory in my veins, literally. So yeah, we won Best Pub Employer at the Publican Awards, which for the uninitiated is the kind of Oscars of the hospitality industry. So we were delighted to win that from relatively humble beginnings and up against the great and the good in that industry for a Hertfordshire, Norfolk based operation with just 10 units, 10 businesses, to win that one and beat everyone else in that very cluttered industry was fantastic. Yeah.
Well, if anybody wants to see some quite entertaining video, they should search out the award ceremony and your team's celebration when you get the name announced. It's quite entertaining.
It was a good laugh, and Claudia Winkleman is as delightful in the flesh as she is on the TV. She hosted us very well.
Brilliant. Let's get into the crux of today. I mean, you're an operational marketer. You sit in that sort of, you're not in the creative side of marketing, but you're in the more the operational side, which is something that people in my industry, the asset management, the fund industry, we spend a lot of time talking about creative, but in reality, the implementation of marketing has become really, really important. And my opening question to you really is marketing a science or an art? What's your view on that?
That's the classic question. The truth is, it's kind of more like witchcraft now than either of those things. Marketing has bled into all other departments and functions in businesses and corporates, and they've all bled into it. You know, it's part IT department now, it's part HR because of all the comms that is demanded of businesses. It's certainly part of finance because you have to, there's no room to do any marketing that doesn't have a solid ROI on it. And obviously it's much closer to sales now than perhaps it's ever been. It's even part legal now with everything that happened since COVID and all the comms around the legality of things there. So you chuck a load of behavioral science at that, and you get the kind of modern marketing team. I suppose what's happened that makes it very different to yesterdecade is it's the data-led nature of marketing these days. You can measure an awful lot of your marketing, whereas even 10, 15 years ago, you could measure your web traffic a bit, you could do one or two other things, but you couldn't have a deep insight as to the intent of every customer, every point in time, and then retarget those customers, and review the bounce rates and the dwell time, and which pages on your website get most interest, and the call to actions and how effective they are. And if you have a button on a website that says read more, how much more powerful is that in terms of converting traffic versus one that says buy now versus one that says learn more? All of these things can be A/B tested to within an inch of their lives. And so we're basically at the CMO, marketing director, head of marketing level. You're just constantly assessing and analyzing the efficiency, the efficacy of marketing metrics. So it's an Excel spreadsheet and Google Suite Data Studio game now, much more than it ever is brainstorming creatives and messaging. That's still a part of it, messaging, but it's taken a back seat because the truth is most marketing messages can be changed in an instant on your digital ecosystem. If you suddenly realize that one message isn't landing well, you just change it because there's no great big print run typically, whereas back in the day you'd have to craft a message and you'd have to live with that for 18 months until there's appetite to change that narrative. Today, even if you've spent a lot of money on outdoor advertising, it won't be billboard advertising that's got printed. Typically it'll be digitized advertising on a tube wall, or even on a bus stop, which is digital and rotates or whatever and can change. So there's less jeopardy of getting it wrong. You can change your messaging in real time. So in that way, it's more creative in some ways, but in terms of crafting message, we can find out what works and what doesn't work very quickly. So there's less pressure on it in some ways.
Okay. And obviously, what you touched on there is there are 2 points I'm going to come on that. One is data, and actually having that data to hand. But linked to that, of course, is knowing your customer and knowing your target market. Do you see data management as a key element of marketing today and the quality of that data?
Oh, well, absolutely. Too many businesses don't invest enough time on this. They have the vanity aspiration to have a data set that's hits a 6-figure sum or whatever, and then they busy themselves by telling their audience what they think they want to know, and they say it too loudly, too often, too invasively sometimes, and it's just they join in the washing machine of communications. And to be frank, they're probably just pissing off a lot of people, and the data set probably doesn't need to be 100,000 strong. It probably needs to be 12,000 strong, depending on what business you're in. Of course, if you're in retail, then you go big, and it kind of makes sense. If you're in B2B, kind of corporate, city, professional services, no one needs an audience that big. It's just pure vanity on LinkedIn to have a followership of 100,000 customers. You're not going to need 100,000 customers. Most businesses operate with about 3,000 to 5,000 customers in professional services. Yeah. So find out who they are, measure their intent, and give them the right message at the right time in their buying cycle, and then you roll. But companies don't do that. They get excited by the vanity of the big number, and they say too much, too loudly, too often.
Well, it's classic, rubbish in, rubbish out, isn't it? If you don't have good quality data, you don't know the information on your customers, you can be sending them information which is irrelevant to them.
Oh, exactly.
So as you say, you're just going to piss them right off.
Yeah.
I mean, technology is a big part of marketing these days. Have you seen innovative technology coming through in recent times, which people should be looking at?
I'm going to contradict myself here a little bit, but because yes, I have, and one of the elements which I've seen in the last few years that has improved a company's ability to build its brand identity in a uniform way has improved measurably because of automated scheduling tools on social. So I'll give an example. Most companies, even now, when the marketing department has a message, a narrative, a white paper, whatever it is that they wish to kind of tell the world about, it'll sit with the marketing team. They'll do their best to get the people on LinkedIn within the company to kind of share it, like it, and do whatever. But there are tools now that can automate that liking and sharing if your staff have got a license with a business that's sorted this out for you. So instead of a marketer sort of sending vainly sending a note out to the entire business saying, we've just launched a 24-page report on whatever, mental health in the workplace, remote working, whatever it might be, the impact of COVID 5 years on or whatever, and then you'll get, in a business of 1,000 people, you might be lucky to get 35 people in that business to like it and share it on their own LinkedIn profiles. If they all do it, guess what? The average person is LinkedIn with 2,500 people, I think it is. So if they all did that, you can quite quickly reach 150,000 people in a business of 1,000 people or more. The maths is probably wrong there, but yeah, you can reach a healthy number quite quickly. But most people don't bother to read the email from the marketer. Whereas now you can have tools that do that automatically. So when you just get someone, all they have to do when they turn up to work is click yes. They'll have an email that will just say, do you want to share this? And they'll go yes. So they don't have to top and tail.
And it does it automatically on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and they don't have to go into LinkedIn to do it. They just get an email and they go yes, bang, and then that can build, for a small company, that can be a very effective way to get your narrative out there to a bigger population of people that are gonna have high intent because they've already linked in with your staff. They're gonna be relevant, and they're more likely to read it because it's come from an individual rather than from a business. And we know that's long been true. You get sent something from a business, you might like the business and not delete it and keep it there to read at some point down the line. You never do. But if it's come from someone that you worked with, had a dinner with, played golf with, had a meeting with, been on a webinar with, or whatever, then you're gonna digest that content and consume that narrative. So yeah, that's probably one that leapt to my mind when you asked that question.
Well, I have to say that I like it. I might be tapping you for the details on that one, because it's a bit of a bugbear of mine, actually. Interesting. You mentioned a word which is, for me, something I've been discussing for years and years and years, which is about brand. Now, brand is something in the marketing space I guess it's the holy grail, for companies. I've always argued that brand is really, really difficult in fund management and asset management, because you're beholden to or potentially going all the way down, you're associated with that decline and that volatility. So you can create inconsistencies in the messaging of your business. Do you see, I see brand almost irrelevant to what we do, and it's more about name awareness and creating that name and a reflection on that. But in the small experience you may have within the sort of financial services or anything like that, can you relate to what you've done previously to a financial services business where brand is important? And if so, what do you think is really important when it comes to creating a brand and creating that name awareness?
I mean, the best definition of a brand I've heard is, I think it's Philip Kotler, professional marketing, professional services. His book might be up there somewhere, bottom shelf in the Navy, not picked up for a decade. But he says a brand is a promise delivered. I've not heard a better descriptor of it since reading that. it's more because of that. It's more than a name. It's more than a name game. It's it's about trust. It's about delivery. It's about service. It's about track record, really. I mean, all professional services hang their brand on their ability to sell a track record. And then once you've got that, you give that the oxygen of publicity. And you can do that as a small organization. It's easier actually with a small organization because you'll get it won't be as disjointed. You get large companies can struggle to kind of control the brand identity because they might employ, when I was at KPMG 100 years ago, we had 220,000 people in the business globally. So, trying to get every one of those people to deliver a service in the right way, say the right thing, it's almost impossible. A smaller business can do that, But brand is about scale because most businesses, they won't have that kind of scale. So are they building a brand or just getting a bit of notoriety for themselves? Most marketing teams working for companies that are probably up to 150, 200 people, maybe. It's about supporting the sales is what marketing and brand management means in that context. When a company's bigger than that, then there's a narrative that you have to protect, that there's a brand identity you need to build across every channel. When I was at Narrative at Randstad, they had we had an audio brand. So there was a noise like the Intel advert, in the Microsoft.
Oh, really?
So they'd invest a 6-figure sum or 7-figure sum, I think, on a sound for the business, so that when you went on the website and you did certain actions, you'd get an audio version of the brand. Not many companies have got the appetite or need really to do that, and certainly not the wallet to do that. So brand management is a very big thing. I mean, I suppose what I'd say is people don't understand brand. They think it's a logo. They might just about understand brand identity, but they get mixed up with all the different language around it. For me, I mean, brand identity is what a marketing department or business creates and shares with the world. That's what you want the world to think of you. Brand perception is the reality, what they actually think of you. If the two are the same, then you have high brand equity. So, Harrods, we all think it's a big posh shop in Knightsbridge. The world, that's our brand perception of it. Their brand identity is we're a big posh shop in Knightsbridge. It's the same. Their brand equity is massive because of that. Looking around my room for another example, I've got a knackered old BlackBerry there. So BlackBerry, that brand identity was we are kind of cutting edge digital mobile service, blah blah blah. The world now thinks, no, you're not. You're a tired old phone from 15 years ago, and therefore brand equity is low because there's a mismatch between the brand identity and the brand perception. So the goal for any business, big or small, is just to kind of build that promise and honor it, and build a track record around it and shine a light on that track record and tell the world about it. The consistency. The market will oscillate, of course, and there are some things you can't control. But
do you think the values of an organization should come through into that brand?
The values, yeah, absolutely. Inside out branding, yeah. The inside, what a company says to its staff and its people and everything else should be a very clear reflection of what it says and does externally. I think where companies have got confused in certainly the last 6-7 years is that they've all joined the bandwagon, the zeitgeists of talking around, every EDI initiative under the sun, all of the initiatives programmed by HR departments, which we know, I know from research, people don't want, but companies continue to feel that they have to talk about these things, which continue to divide people, and the departments do that, businesses do that, and it's not working out well for them, partly because everyone's saying the same thing, saying it too loudly. So, you're kind of lost in the washing machine clutter of comms anyway. But that's the better case scenario. The worst case scenario is you can't please everyone and you can't include everyone, and it's exhausting for people, and it can be very invasive. I've seen clients who desperately looking for the case study of the homosexual wedding in their business, so that they can kind of create a post internally about that, and then use it on the website to kind of tell the world that they're very inclusive. These kinds of things didn't happen once upon a time. My training for the largest law firm and accountancy firm in the world at the time was that you didn't ever trespass on people's sexuality, their religion, any other kind of politics or cultural kind of nuance or interest they had. You left that at home because it's just too dangerous a thing to kind of meddle with. And I think companies are kind of starting to see that now, that A, no one's interested in it. B, it's too invasive for HR departments to try and I'll use this phrase, I won't apologize for it, to try and find out how their staff get their orgasms, right? It's a bit weird. It's a bit Gestapo. And creating stories and narratives and infographics and virals and films for these things. People don't want it. They find it divisive and a bit invasive. And
I think there's a balance, though, isn't there? I would argue. I look at what we do as GemCat. If someone is doing something of interest and they're happy for it to be shared, and we do like litter picking. I plant trees. I go climbing and write a blog about that. I think if people are prepared to share it, but I agree with you. The companies are too invasive. In a firm I used to work with many years ago, 20 odd years ago now, I remember we did a survey to all the staff. It was about 25 years ago now. We did a survey and we found we had 3 Olympians in the company.
Wow.
And the chief exec got very, very excited. And I was thinking, do they really want the fact they haven't told anybody that they're Olympians probably tells you that they don't want people to know about it, because they didn't want their perception and how they were, how people dealt with them, their interaction would change as a result. It's like meeting your hero. We all know that if I suddenly met any one of my heroes, Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen or something like that, I would be I could talk away merrily about him, but as soon as I met Lewis Hamilton, I could be a complete idiot. I'd talk like a moron. So you don't want that interaction if you're a successful person. So I do think there's an element of too much invasion. I do agree, but when you can balance it with what I consider some of our core values, which is about being engaged with the community, being engaged with the local charities, etc. I do think there is a value out there, but I do take on board your point. And I'd also agree with your point that brand is not a logo, is not a name. They are an irrelevance. Our name is GemCat. It's got reason because I'm a founder of the business. It's Gemini. We're a capital business. It's all about partnerships. There's certain values, and there's trees because we do a lot of tree planting. But I do agree, it's not about names. Just moving on to other things now, just marketing strategies. A lot of firms, they make it up as they go along. Now, you've got an experience in when you probably sat down in certainly the firms you've worked with previously and more likely where you are now, where you set out a marketing strategy for 1, 3, 5, possibly even 10 years.
Yeah.
What do you think are the key challenges when it comes to creating a marketing strategy for any business, no matter what area they're in?
I have worked in organisations that have, as a rule, had a 2, 4, 5, 7 year plan. Some have been bold enough to go further, which I always find, lunacy, really. And as the last 5, 10 years have shown us, you can't plan for more.
I can argue the last 3 months, to be fair, but
I mean, I see the logic in going 2 years, because a year is just driven by the planet and the sun, isn't it? So it's what's 365 days. Business doesn't really work like that. And so you need to go more than a year with your deep, hard planning. 2 years, I get. 3 years, you're starting to basically roll a dice and see if you get a 7 half the time. So I'm not quite sure how valuable that is. But the kind of academic process and intellectual rigor of going through it can throw up ideas that you need to consider. So I think that's probably a sensible thing to do. Strategies and businesses, they, in my experience, they tend to struggle to stick to their own knitting. Most companies have always got one eye, however much they think, we'll stick to our core business. Give it 3 months. Come April, they're itching, and they start to think, how can we consult around this piece over here? What's the next big thing? And so they can end up managing a dozen businesses more poorly, whereas sticking to the 3 or 4 businesses that might make you the money, and invest all of your time at board level on those, would probably bank a stronger buck than pretending to be an expert across everything you come across, and then you get sales teams that start selling something they're not supposed to sell. But in the meeting it made sense because the client was talking about that thing, so you pivot and try and make out that you're an expert in that. So back to your question, really, because I skied off piste a little bit there. Marketing strategies, it's about understanding your business and where you want to go, and having a forensic kind of focus on that. And you've got to look at opportunities. You've got to see where other things may come into focus, and where you might be able to turn a dollar for yourselves. But it can't be at the it can't stitch up the rest of the business. I see that an awful lot.
I think the challenges that certainly in my career where marketing strategies have been implemented is when there's no objective, there's no, you don't know where you're heading, and very invariably it's because you actually don't know where you are, where you are, your position in the market and where you want to be, and so there's a disconnect on that journey that people want to try and take. So it's almost like I guess it leads on to another thing, which is that some of the key mistakes that firms make when they come to do marketing strategy. But certainly from my own experience, it's this inability to recognize where they are and where they want to get to.
Exactly.
The chief exec will just say, we want to be number one. What does that mean?
Yeah. So the marketing strategy should reflect the business strategy. Most businesses don't really have a strategy. They might have something that they say to shareholders, but they're not necessarily honoring it. The truth is their strategy is make more money than last time. And they might create a narrative for certain stakeholders, the capital markets, boys and girls, that they have to kind of pitch to a couple of times a year. But honoring that strategy and building a marketing program and narrative to deliver on it, that can be a gap for some organizations. I've certainly seen that in my career. Companies are desperately seeking, they don't know how to strategize. They forget the academics that they might have had at MBA school, and they fly by the seat of their pants, come up with something that sounds good in the moment, and then they go and do something else.
No, I do see that. Most of the firms that I certainly work with and see around the market don't want to spend a huge amount of money when it comes to marketing. Again, it's the same with salespeople. They don't want to spend a lot of money on sales, and they wonder why they haven't got any revenue coming in. It's because they haven't got any salespeople, they haven't got any marketing. But with the advent of technology, and we touched on about LinkedIn, which is obviously is the key business social media program, which is free. It's there, generally free, unless you do the premium course. But do you see the ability to create operational marketing on a budget, or is there a significant expense when it comes to really delivering it? And I'm thinking about this for smaller firms who don't probably have the budget around to go and really, and they're not these aren't B2C, these are B2B businesses. So that they're not doing billboards outside, Oxford Circus. Or so do you think there's a cheaper way of doing marketing using technology or other ways available?
Absolutely. I think probably the most effective marketing campaigns I've ever rolled out have been ones that have been more affordable. You know, there'll certainly be things that I've done that might have represented 2-3% of, admittedly, a big marketing budget, but they might have delivered 40% of the sales leads, the warm sales leads that we've had in a given year. Actually, webinars like this since COVID are dropping off a bit because people are going back to the office more, but they can be very effective. If you can reach in the invitation process, you can reach a healthy 6-figure sum of people, and then you'll get a registration number that will be 3-4% of that. And then of course with a webinar, they're investing an awful lot of time in your brand. Most other marketing things that you give someone or present to someone, whether it's a web page or a white paper or an invite to something, it's quite short. A webinar typically is an hour or 90 minutes or whatever. People are investing in your brand for that length of time. You've got the opportunity to sell your business, in effect, a kind of an informal pitch to them about your product as well. And depending on who you talk to on the webinar, it can be very affordable. You can get some really decent, famous people for a few grand, and it can get an audience. Now, some of the audience will be students and people that just like the person you've got, but there'll be a chunk of those people that will be genuine clients who you've marketed the event to, and they turn up. So that's one mechanism that can be very attainable for a smaller business. But the thing is, you've got to commit to doing it, like you have. The webinar programs I've done, I've run for sort of 3 or 4 years, and you've got to do one every couple of months or so. If you do 1 or 2 a year when you remember to, and there's no cadence to it, there's no sequence, you can't then reference back to the audience that might become loyal. Last month these were the unemployment figures, blah blah blah. You can reference all that stuff in a timely way, so people start to you get a loyal audience. So you've got to commit to doing it. But going back to your question, there are things. I mean, digital has enabled even the smaller companies to quite quickly get significant followership on LinkedIn. Everyone's doing it now, of course, and there's those automated tools to schedule social posts I mentioned. That does mean that a lot of companies can get there quite quickly. So it's having a message that is consistent, that is different. You've got to say something different. Again, as we've seen in the last 5, 6, 7 years, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but every company has said the same thing about the same topic for so long, and it just bores the hell out of people. And and so there's an inauthenticity to it as well. Having a rainbow lanyard doesn't make you an inclusive employer. It means your department has given out 1,000 rainbow lanyards to people in June, and people just see that now. They don't see it as anything other than just the marketing thing.
It's just too shallow, isn't it? At the end of the day,
it's just incredibly shallow and pointless. And it's become just gimmicky, and it's not even gimmicky because gimmicks typically are things that people do as a one-off, but they're kind of like surfed an idea.
Well, let me throw you another question, which leads very beautifully into this, which is what do you see are the key mistakes when it comes to marketing, when delivering marketing, that you've seen not just in the firms you've worked with, but hopefully not too much in what you work with, because clearly you did it very well, but firms elsewhere where you thought, what on earth were they doing? What do you see in those key mistakes? Please share an example if you see one.
Well, I think companies, as I said, they join the bandwagon. They don't try and disrupt. They don't try and say something different. I think that's probably true. I think companies ignore data massively. So there'll be data within a business that clearly to anyone normal will say, oh, we shouldn't do that anymore because it delivered no sales. Now we'll continue to do that though, because I don't really believe that data. and Bill likes it, and Jane likes it, so we'll continue to do the thing. So you see a lot of that, a lot of chairman's choice, a lot of CEO's choice, businesses sponsoring certain things because someone in the business loves the thing, who's important, so they can spend a lot of money, even though it's not necessarily a relevant thing to sponsor for the business. I said that the obsession with businesses having a company line across all kind of political, cultural, religious festivals and all that. I think that's a clear mistake. Other mistakes, shiny new toys, tech. They've got one down the road. We want one. We want an app. It used to be an app. I mean, apps are actually quite good now. Can actually turn a dollar, right? But that's probably been the case for most corporates. Perhaps under 5 years, but 5 to 15 years ago, that decade period, people would just want an app. They just like saying the word. It was almost like, just like, yeah, we've got an app. Have you? What does it do? What's its function? Oh,
is that important?
It's a sort of mini website with no call to action on it on a phone. So like with no inbound opportunity to kind of connect with your website, perhaps even, it was just a thing. And I saw companies spend a lot of 7-figure sums building apps when the app didn't actually have any meaningful function, but was an opportunity to have a company logo of one of the 60 company logos that you might have on an app on someone's phone. Now they just launched one as it goes for the company I work for, and now it's much more interactive. You can buy stuff, you can get deals on it, rewards and offers, and save money and all the rest of it, and join a loyalty program.
My wife is on that app. Yes, my wife
is indeed.
She's getting that discount. Okay, let me just, if we can, as a sort of closing remark, so if we may, the world is a different place today. Marketing has changed beyond, when I started my career and you started, you're a bit younger than me. Marketing has fundamentally changed, but it doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. But if you're sitting there in the marketing department of whichever firm or whichever industry you're sitting in, where do you see the opportunities when it comes for marketers to move their companies and themselves, their careers forward? Where do you see those opportunities lying?
That's a great question. It's the $64 million question, and then I don't think we've even mentioned AI in this webinar yet, have we? But there's a stark and dark truth about AI that has to be mentioned in this context. Goldman Sachs will tell you that by 2030, 300 million jobs will disappear because of AI across North America and Europe. So basically, first world. You can't ignore that. It can do things quicker and at pace and at volume in a way that wasn't possible before.
Well, if it's using human language, that's the thing, isn't it? Whereas before it would use Python to, you have to get a coder in. Now you can just put in what you want. You and I can do it. That's the amazing thing about AI.
It's accessible tech in a way that we've not had for a while. But it does come with job losses. By 2030, Goldman Sachs say 300 million jobs will go. You can Google the breakdown as to which sectors are most impacted. But from the last article I read, which was admittedly 6-7 months ago, I think they were talking about 46% of legal jobs in the UK going by 2030, 42% of marketing jobs, 40-something% of jobs across accountancy, finance, even. So, the World Employment Confederation, WEC, they'll tell you that AI is going to generate 97 million jobs across the same geography. So Goldman Sachs are saying 300 mil lost. They're saying 97 million created. There's a gap of 203 million jobs there across the first world. That's a hell of a slug. And in the first world, but about 52% of people actually work when you take out, people in long-term education, school, people in prison, and OAPs and the like. And so that's a lot. That's enormous. So back to marketing, heavy impact for us because marketing has been historically about messaging and getting messaging out there. It's been a mashup of design, digital, and crafting message. AI can do all of that much quicker, not always as accurately. And yeah, marketing roles will be looking at what AI has done for them and making sure it's going out more accurately. That said, it's going to kill a load of marketing jobs, and it's going to do it quickly. All other tech change has over history has had a lead time that has enabled society kind of to adjust, right? Even when the screen, looking at screens, when the screen came in, 1979, where screens were used more than ever before, it took 21 years until I was at KPMG doing the first paperless audit, right? So there's a 21-year lead time between that happening. This is happening. This bit of change is a 5-6 year play, and much more drastic. So I try and be positive around this one. I try and listen to, mantras of politicians where they get all excited about, the UK's ability to kind of major on this one and be leaders in it. And actually, if you're a dinosaur, if you're kind of a Luddite, if you think that this one's negative and all the rest of it. I've not seen any data. Getting back to being data-led, I've not seen any data yet that can tell me that this one is pretty. Now, the opportunity for marketers, though, ironically, is you using AI quicker than the next business does. It will save you money. It'll do it quicker, and you might just save your business before the next company down the line that aren't as quick off the bat as you. But I'm not sure it'll be good for society. And if you get tranches of middle class people that are suddenly out of work, I'm not sure how society can stomach that one, because you get a lot of very disgruntled people that have invested in their careers and in their education an awful lot, being lawyers, being accountants, being marketers, being whatever it might be. And if they're suddenly in a situation where, well, why did I go to university to get that degree, to get that professional qualification, to get that MBA? And by the time I'm 35, I'm out of my ear and I'm an Uber delivery person or whatever, a delivery person or an Uber Eats driver or whatever. That's got a societal problem that is bigger than any of the questions that we've tackled today. Message.
I was at a thing last night talking about AI, and one of the people around the table, the round table discussion, CEOs and stuff, one of the firms they were saying, we're making job losses. The job losses are announced shortly because of AI. People who do requests for proposal, requests for information. Previously, they'd have teams of 15. Now they've got teams of 10. So it's it's only 5 people. That's 33% of the team gone. So it's quite challenging.
I was talking to I won't name a journalist at the FT who's been there for many, many years. The other month we had lunch, and she kind of looks at the building that she worked in and just was quite emotional about the role of journalism, even, and how even for an institution like the FT, and how what they do and chunks of what they do can be done much quicker and maybe not better, but it can be done very quickly. The appetite of journalism is just getting content out there that's accurate. There'll be a greater focus on quality, a flight to quality. All these phrases will be used as we try and as businesses that are more authentic, stick to it and stick to the kind of the old way of doing things. And maybe there'll be a backswing of real people saying real things with real opinions, rather than an AI bot making sure that 20 million people read a message, and on a very EDI compliant message that's been AI botted and has gone to everyone very automatically one morning. I think people are starting to see through that, and AI at the moment, it does get an awful lot wrong. That's also the truth.
Oh, absolutely.
and it's dangerous, and it can be dangerous rather.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the opportunity is there to use it. It can certainly do some things, and businesses should engage with it, of course, because it can do a lot of very dull, voluminous tasks more effectively. Whether or not it makes people happier, which is kind of the game I'm in more as I get older, I think businesses should strive to make people's lives better. And I'm not sure losing 300 million jobs across the first world fits with that very well.
Mind you, Goldman Sachs have got things wrong in the past. They forecast the demise of the investment management industry back in the 90s. Well, that hasn't happened, so we'll see. My final point on AI, by the way, I did an article about a year ago now about AI, and I phoned up a client and said, I'm talking about distribution, not marketing, but distribution. I said about artificial intelligence in distribution, and he said, I'd like any intelligence, never mind artificial. I don't care. On that note, Adam, I'm going to we'll come to a close now. So, Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you. Thank you so much for your time. Thoroughly recommend anybody who's watching this and listening to go and visit some of the Angling Country Inns. You've done a great job there since you've been there, and we wish you continued success. But for now, it's thank you, and we'll speak soon, I hope.
Bless you. Thank you very much indeed.
Take care.